Chapter 586, Unreasonable. A black car parked behind the Adra R. The driver was a beautiful girl, and even though her beauty was not on par with Mu Weining, she could still be regarded as a goddess in the eyes of many male youths. Her name was Li Jing, a real estate saleswoman of the Lauren Villa complex. Li Jing's recent performance was very poor, because she wasn't willing to accept some unspoken rules in the real estate market sales. Her manager had even warned her that she must pack her stuff and leave directly if she couldn't sell a house this month. Therefore, despite feeling irritated inside, she also looked forward with impatient expectancy, hoping that a bankroller customer would come to visit, and it would be best if the bankroller was a woman. Today, however, just as she was pondering over the matter at the gate of the sales center, she saw a good-looking couple coming toward her. She really looked forward to it, because the couple looked like they were very rich given how they dressed up and the luxury sports cars they came with. Mr. Tang, Ms. Mu, we have only 4 villas left in this Lauren Villa complex now. I've already presented 3 of them to you in the sales center, and all of them don't meet your satisfaction. Then I'll take you directly to Villa number 9. Please come with me. The villa is very close to here. Tang Xiao and Mu Weining nodded slightly and followed Li Jing for a couple of minutes before arriving at the front gate of Villa number 9. It was a European-style villa with a total of 3 floors, a large area, and the most satisfactory aspect was that it boasted hundreds of square meters of lawn and garden before its gate. It's very stylish. The price shouldn't be cheap either, yes? Asked Tang Xiao with a smile. Indeed. Li Jing said, the housing price has been sharply increasing as of recently, reaching 145,000 yuan per square meter. The lawn and garden outside the villa are complimentary, but the villa itself still has 460 square meters. The total price is 66.7 million yuan, and with a 5% discount I can give you, the net price will be 63.365 million. I can also help you reduce it by 65,000 yuan more if you pay up front. Tang Xiao shot Mu Weining a look of inquiry. Mu Weining nodded silently, indicating that the price was acceptable to her. This impressed Tang Xiao, because he didn't expect that she earned such a huge sum of money within such a short time. Afterward, the duo came to the villa under Li Jing's guidance. The overall layout was great, and there was also a very spacious private pool on the west side of the first floor. For a villa to have such an indoor private swimming pool nowadays was very rare. I'll take it. After having a look, Mu Weining straightly gave her decision. A pleasantly surprised expression appeared in Li Jing's eyes. She then left the villa with Tang Xiao and Mu Weining toward the sales center to handle the transaction formalities. Han Jintong, who had waited for some time outside the door, blocked the path of the trio. Are you not basking yourself under the sun today, Uncle Han? Did you come out to stroll around? Li Jing was obviously very familiar with Han Jintong as she greeted him with a smile. Han Jintong let out a faint smile and slightly nodded in response before his eyes shifted to Tang Xiao. There was a respectful expression on his face when he spoke. Are you here to buy a house, Mr. Tang? Tang Xiao also didn't expect that he would meet Han Jintong here. He shook his head and replied, it's not me, I'm just accompanying a friend to buy one. Han Jintong shot Mu Weining a look and felt a tinge of regret inside. He also wondered that, if his granddaughter were to try harder and take more initiative, perhaps there would be some chances left for her to be with Tang Xiao. But after having a look at Mu Weining, he realized that there was no hope left for his granddaughter, because Mu Weining was too beautiful. Not only was she on par with his granddaughter but even better. Oh, given his status and capacity, could it perhaps that only such a girl deserves to be with him? Han Jintong sighed deeply inwardly. Do you know Mr. Tang, Uncle Han? The saleswoman, Li Jing, was surprised. Without waiting for Han Jintong to answer her question, Tang Xiao preemptively answered it. Yeah, I met him once, but we are not too familiar, though. Han Jintong's breath lagged, and he immediately forced a bitter smile inside. Had it been someone else, he would have slapped the person before turning around to leave. But how could he afford to offend such a master? A bit of awkwardness appeared on his old face as he said, "Though I only met Mr. Tang once, I admire him very much. Little Li, since Mr. Tang's friend wants to buy a house here, you should give a bigger discount and reduce the price more." "Then I'll call the manager right away," said Li Jing quickly. Tang Xiu furrowed his brows as he looked at Han Jintong and asked, "Is your face very valuable here?" Cough. Cough. This sentence made Han Jintong choke and cough a few times. He couldn't be more than eager to run away from here, and yet he still came over to express his goodwill, hence the reply, "It should be worth some dime. The owner of this villa complex is the right-hand man of my second son, and I'm also staying in my second son's place right now." Tang Xiu nodded at him in response, as he looked at Li Jing and said, "Call your manager, then. Let's conclude the transaction according to the price we've agreed before. Do you have any problems with it, Wei? A strange light glinted in Mu Weiying's eyes. Smart as she was, she could immediately understand that Tang Xiu didn't want to accept the goodwill from the old man in front of him, and even deliberately kept a distance. Therefore, she let out a faint smile and said, "I have no problem with that. I'm fine with signing the deal and paying up front." Li Jing was somewhat awkward being caught in the middle, as she looked at Tang Xiu and Han Jintong in front. She got the cell number of her manager from her phone book, but she wasn't sure whether she should dial it. Han Jintong let out a hollow laugh and knew that Tang Xiu didn't want to accept his goodwill and immediately said, "Do it according to the will of Mr. Tang? Customers have always been the kings, thus you must spare no effort to serve them. Anyways, I have other things to tend to, so I won't be able to accompany you, Mr. Tang. I'll take my leave, then." Having said that, Han Jintong walked away with a crestfallen expression. As a smart girl, Li Jing could tell that Han Jintong obviously wanted to express his goodwill to Tang Xiu. Therefore, she secretly decided that she must report this incident after meeting her manager, and try to give this particular customer more discounts if possible. "Everyone, let's return to the sales center." Inside the sales center, Fong Chang comfortably sat with tilted legs on the European-style sofa while his eyes fixated on the charming Hao Qian standing in front of him. As the sales center manager, he had many privileges as well as plenty of ill-gotten gains. In particular, he made all the saleswomen who worked here fawn on him. "Qian, are we going to have dinner tonight?" What was inside his mind was how Qian's tender white flesh in her uniform made him hot inside. He was not a good man, as he got several saleswomen in this sales center on his bed. And the beautiful Hao Qian in front of him was also no exception. Hao Qian intentionally pouted her mouth and replied a bit coquettishly, "Sure, accompanying you to dinner won't be a problem, Brother Chang. It's just that my client hopes that you can cut the price a bit for the villa number 9. You see." Slightly furrowing his brows, Fong Chang said, "The price I gave him is very low already, yet he wants it to drop even more? This won't do. Besides, selling the villas in the Lauren Villa complex is very easy. Even if he doesn't buy it now, I'm sure there will be other clients who will come to see the house a few days later. Anyhow, if it's not good for him, just push him off." Hao Qian immediately felt anxious. She then came to Fong Chang and sat on his lap. After looking around and finding that nobody was paying attention to the corner where they were at, she immediately placed her hand on his thigh as her slender, small fingers drew a circle on the inside of his thigh, saying, "Brother Chang, other clients may indeed come, but counting it as a result of my professional work is hard to say. You can facilitate and make things easier for me, wouldn't that be good? At the worst, I will just put on that nurse uniform you bought me last time if things come to worst." "Really?" asked Fong Chang quickly as his spirit was aroused. "Absolutely, I'll put it on tonight," said Hao Qian seriously. Fong Chang raised his hand to touch his chin and pondered for a few seconds before happily replying, "It's a deal. Make that client come sign the transaction in the afternoon." Tell him that I only have time for him this afternoon. Great. Thanks a bunch, Brother Chang. Hao Qian gleefully glanced around before hugging Fong Chang's neck and forcefully kissing his face. She then took her mobile to make a call. After a minute, she had a conversation with the other party and agreed to sign the house purchase agreement at 2:30 p.m. in the sales center. 10 minutes later, Li Jing briskly stepped inside the sales center along with Tang Xiao and Mu Weining. Mr. Tang, Ms. Mu, please wait in the rest area first. I'll make the contract and we'll sign the house purchase agreement later. All right. Tang Xiao and Mu Weining were not in a hurry and headed to the rest area to sit. After Li Jing busily spent some time to make the house purchase agreement, she didn't immediately go to see Tang Xiao and Mu Weining but looked for Fong Cheng first. She couldn't conceal the excitement in her eyes when she said, "Manager, my client is ready to buy the villa number 9. I've also negotiated the price with them as of now. The villa number 9 has been booked out." Fong Cheng waved his hand to interrupt her and lightly said, "Tell your client to choose from the other 3 villas." Li Jing was struck dumb and looked at Fong Cheng as if she couldn't believe what she heard. She had just checked the property booking system a moment ago. Villa number 9 was not booked, even the deposit had been confiscated. Are you not mistaken, manager? Villa number 9 has just been booked out, and I'm not mistaken at all. Fong Cheng furrowed his brows and said with a displeased expression. The client who booked villa number 9 is Hao Qian's client, and they will come here in the afternoon to sign the purchase agreement. All right, if you have no other matters, don't disturb me anymore. But manager, our sales department have always employed a persistent policy that whoever pays the money first would be the one who gets the house. If that client has already paid the deposit, then I'll immediately leave now. But my client has promised to pay up front immediately once they have signed the house purchase agreement. You see. Chapter 587, Selling the Villa at a Very Low Price. Fong Cheng's expression slightly changed and anger could be seen brewing in his eyes. He didn't like Li Jing. No, precisely speaking, he liked Li Jing very much. He once had the fantasy of getting her into bed, but it was a pity that Li Jing didn't have any good impression toward him whatsoever, thus he was flatly refused. Therefore, he secretly instructed the other saleswomen to snatch Li Jing's clients, and even gave them preferential treatment so as to make her lower her head a bit and be unable to strike a deal. And now, he had 2 paths for her. First, to climb in his bed like a slut, and second, to pack up her stuff and quit. As for the sale of a villa, even if her performance was up to standard, it was just something to toy her with. I already told you that the villa number 9 has already been booked by someone else. The deposit will be transferred to the company's account later. I understand that you badly want to sell a house, but it doesn't mean that you can snatch the bill from someone else either, don't you think? Very well then, ask your client whether they are willing to pick another villa, but do get the hell out if they don't wanna. Tears burst out from Li Jing's eyes. Her grievance and irritation made her want to slap Fong Cheng a few times, but her sane mind told her not to. She couldn't afford to lose her job, otherwise she would have to sell her apartment. She needed to earn money to pay the mortgage and also send some money to her parents. Suddenly, she remembered something and suppressed her impulse to cry, saying, "Manager, since you want to sell villa number 9 to someone else, then I can forget it. But these 2 clients of mine are very special. Uncle Han, who lives in villa number 8, seems to know them. He was very amiable and friendly towards them." Fong Cheng's brows furrowed slightly and immediately mocked her. "Do you want to tell me that the boss' current achievement was inseparable from his capable helper, the second son of that old geezer Han? Isn't it so?" replied Li Jing. Fong Cheng got up with contempt and ridicule on his face as he scornfully derided, "Li Jing, do you know why you have no results in our sales center? It's because you're too stupid. You're too rigid and are oblivious as to how to adapt to circumstances. Do you know what decade you are living in? Shouldering the grace and benevolence from others until you die? Humph, the present capacity of our big boss is more than that old geezer Han's son in the past. Do you think that our boss will still give face to that old Han on his son's account? That's ridiculous. Li Jing's glimmer of hope was blown away by Fang Chang's rebuttal. Unwilling as she may be, she didn't know what else she could use to argue back. Suddenly, courage seemed to emerge inside her heart as she secretly made up her mind. She turned around and headed to the office under Fang Chang's mocking smirk. Several minutes later, she obtained the cell number of her big boss, Chen Bin, and dialed it. Shanghai, Hongtu Group. At the moment, Chen Bin, who owned a few billions yuan in wealth, was sitting in the reception room and receiving a guest. This particular guest was a big boss he had invited many times already, who had more wealth and higher status in Shanghai than him. Brother Jing, I've already expressed my intention as well as presented all the estimated profits to you. As long as you're willing to give me those few projects, I guarantee that I'll fulfill both the quality and quantity requirements. Besides, it won't affect your next big plan either, and we can also satisfy and make the best of both sides. Chen Bin had been looking forward to being able to pick up some subcontracts from Jin Xingkui after the Jinda real estate, planned to subcontract several projects. Brother Chen, we are all in the construction industry, so we know it inside out, said Jin Xingkui smilingly. However, more than 10 construction companies have approached me recently, and they also offered more than you. It's tough for me to accept it if you can't allocate more profits. Chen Bin secretly scowled and criticized Jin Xingkui for being greedy, yet he kept smiling on the surface and said, "How about I reformulate the agreement with much better conditions than these, Brother Jin? Anyways, there is still some time today, would you care to have a few shots in the golf course? I don't have the leisure time you have now, Brother Chen." Jin Xingkui shook his head and smilingly said, "I recently started a new project and am ridden with all sorts of worrying things as well. Let's postpone it to later. We'll have a few shots whenever we find some time later." Chen Bin was somewhat disappointed inside and also envious at the same time upon hearing it, and yet he couldn't do anything about it. Jin Xingkui's business was currently booming, and his new project especially boasted massive works and would be quite a source of money once it was completed. Ring, ring, ring. A call from an unfamiliar number made Chen Bin swallow back the words he was about to say. After a moment's hesitation, he looked at Jin Xingkui and apologized before accepting the call, saying, "Chen Bin speaking, who is this?" "Hello, boss. I'm Li Jing, a salesperson from the Lauren Villa Complex Sales Center. I really wasn't supposed to disturb you, but I have very important thing to report to you." "Speak." Upon hearing Li Jing's identity, Chen Bin instinctively wanted to hang up. After all, daring to call the higher-ups behind one's immediate superiors back was something he really didn't like. The last sentence from Li Jing, however, made him temporarily pause and allow her to speak. Li Jing had long considered what she would say inside her mind. It was her last hope, thus she was ready to stake everything she had even if she would get fired. Not only did she narrate what Fang Chang had done, she even told the issues with the clients who came to buy the villa today. Finally, she said, "Boss, Manager Fang said that you're the kind of businessman who discards your helpers after their help is made use of and the kind who only seek for profits and doesn't care about past sentiments at all. This is the reason why I called, to tell you that even Uncle Han attaches great importance to Mr. Tang, even flattering him. Also, these two clients are driving a very luxurious sports car. I secretly checked it out on the internet and found that his car is priced at over 10 million yuan. I think their identity must be extraordinary." A flame of anger blazed inside Chen Bin's heart. It was not aimed at Li Jing but toward Fang Chang. Outsiders may not know the relationship between him and the Han family, but he knew perfectly well that he would only be a good-for-nothing trash now if it wasn't for Han Jintong's son in the past. Therefore, he always remembered the benevolence given unto him by the others and even treating Han Jintong as his own elder and a family member, even though many years had passed by. Furthermore, what startled him most was about the clients who could afford a few millions yuan luxury sports car. Their identity was probably extraordinary and couldn't be underestimated. The waters of Shanghai were very deep, thus he always acted prudently despite having a wealth of a few billion yuan, for fear of offending someone he couldn't afford to offend. Who exactly is this Mr. Tang? Asked Chen Bin after pondering for a moment. It's Tang Xiu, answered Li Jing. The name felt familiar to Chen Bin and he gave it a thought for a while. He heard this name somewhere but couldn't remember it. However, for elderly Han Jintong to feel the need to fawn upon him, this person was obviously someone whose identity was really extraordinary. I see. I'll come over to the villa complex shortly. Having said that, he concluded the call. With a hesitant expression, he then looked at Jin Xinkue and asked, Brother Jin, can I ask you something? Have you heard of a young man named Tang Xiu? Jin Xinkue stared at him with a blank face, and then his expression immediately changed. He then replied with a sinking voice, I do know the owner of that name. Chen Bin, what are you asking Tang Xiu's name for? Astute as he was, Chen Bin couldn't help but turn more cautious after seeing Jin Xinkue's expression, as he then replied, a staff from the sales center of the villa complex I just developed just called. She reported a particular situation to me. He then explained everything he had heard cautiously and finally said, I feel that this name is quite familiar. It's like I've heard it somewhere but I can't remember it. But you have more experience and also have a lot of personal connections, Brother Jin, hence why I asked you. A strange expression appeared on Jin Xinkue's face before he shot Chen Bin a deep gaze. Following that, he got up and said, Chen Bin, I've given some thought to your offer, and I'm satisfied with it. You don't need to reformulate the agreement anymore, we can sign the contract today. However, I have a request. Chen Bin was dumbfounded. Astute and smart he may be, yet he was completely bewildered by Jin Xinkue's jumping off topic. He couldn't grasp where it was heading. Please say, said Chen Bin cautiously. There's no need for Tang Xiu to pay for a villa in your villa complex, said Jin Xinkue. Just sell it to him for 1 yuan. Chen Bin instantly gasped a cold breath. At this time, he suddenly understood. No matter how the topic was shifted and circled about, Jin Xinkue just agreed to cooperate with him with the previous conditions, and it was all because of this Tang Xiu. Who could this holiness be? Not only was this person worth it for elderly Han Jintong to fawn upon, even such a bigwig like Jin Xinkue gave up quite a large profit for him. Brother Jin, this Mr. Tang is, Chen Bin cautiously explored. He has a lot of identities, but I won't tell you all of them one by one, said Jin Xinkue. There are 2 points I can tell you now. Firstly, Tang Xiu is someone I can't afford to offend. Even if there were 10 of me, I would never dare to provoke him. Secondly, he's a friend of mine and also my business partner. Though the new city project is mainly helmed by me, he's the major shareholder in it. Hiss. Chen Bin suddenly gasped upon hearing this. At this time, he rained down streams of curses toward Fong Chang inwardly and couldn't wait to drag and slap him fiercely. Such a powerful great personage came to buy a villa in his villa complex, yet Fong Chang went so far as to slam the door on his face just to intentionally make things difficult for a saleswoman? Brother Jin, I'll immediately rush over to the Lauren Villa complex. I'll sell the villa to Mr. Tang for 1 yuan just like you told me to. If so, then off you go and Godspeed. Jin Xinkue nodded. Anyways, it won't be convenient for me to appear there. And do not mention anything about the matter between us. When you're all done dealing with it, bring the contract to the Jinda real estate. I'll be waiting for you there. Brother Jin, I'll definitely handle this matter well, said Chen Bin with all seriousness. As a matter of fact, I would still do it even if you didn't tell me so. It's because elderly Han is my own elder, and I never dare not to listen to his words. Jin Xinkue smilingly nodded. He was full of admiration and adulation toward Tang Xiu inwardly. He had heard of Han Jintong's name, an old man who didn't expose his talents yet was very capable. The second son of this old man was once a very successful businessman in Shanghai that had developed his business into a giant entity, and then immigrated overseas to expand it. Chapter 588, What kind of joke is this? Inside the property sales center of Lauren Villa Complex. It had been more than half an hour that Tang Xiu and Mu Weining sat in the rest area waiting for Li Jing, but they didn't see Li Jing's figure at all. They were quite surprised when Li Jing came to them slowly, with nothing in her hands just like when she left. What happened? Asked Tang Xiu, confused. Li Jing didn't understand what her boss meant, so she wasn't certain the excuses she had to tell the other party would be useful. However, she had already packed the stuff in her office and was waiting for her boss to come. In the case that the matter ended up unsatisfactorily, she was afraid that she could only be swept out and leave for home. She felt somewhat sorry for Tang Xiu and Mu Weining, for she thought that they were just victims who got implicated by her problems. So she said, Mr. Tang, Ms. Mu, I apologize for keeping you waiting. It's because something went wrong. My boss is currently heading here and he'll arrive soon, I believe. Would you two wait a bit longer? What's the problem? Asked Mu Weining. What exactly happened? Li Jing was about to speak but hesitated. After looking at her expression, Tang Xiu's brows slightly furrowed and then asked, What's the name of your big boss? Chen Bin, said Li Jing and secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Chen Bin? After searching his memories, Tang Xiu couldn't remember the name, and obviously, he hadn't met nor was acquainted with him, thus this should probably be an internal problem of their company. As he thought up to there, he then looked at Mu Weining and said, It's fine in any case, since we have nothing to do this morning. We'll wait a bit longer then. That's right. Mu Weining came to buy a house, but as a matter of fact, she had an ulterior motive. That was, as long as she could be alone with Tang Xiu, whatever the place was the same. Seeing that they expressed their willingness to wait, Li Jing immediately shot they a grateful look and personally served them tea. Afterward, she went to wait for her boss outside the door. Feng Cheng then strolled in a leisurely manner with his left hand stuffed in his pocket. His eyes swept over Tang Xiu before landing on Mu Weining's face, as shock immediately painted his face. Despite having considerable power in this sales center, he didn't dare to offend these clients, for he knew that people who could afford to buy such luxury villas were not your ordinary laymen. Nevertheless, he may not dare provoke Tang Xiu and Mu Weining, but that was not so toward Li Jing. He felt that he could elevate his dignity and rank highly if he taught her in front of Mu Weining. So, he raised his chin and said, What are you doing, Li Jing? Don't tell me you haven't told the clients that the villa number 9 has already been sold? Li Jing opened her mouth and her face turned pale. What's with me, huh? Feng Chang raised his brows and reproached her, though villa number 9 has been sold, aren't there 3 others that have not yet sold out? If you feel that you don't have the ability to serve the clients well, then I'll do it myself. Tang Xiu frowned. He looked at Li Jing and asked, What's happened here? Li Jing finally realized that she couldn't hide it anymore as she toughened her resolve and said, Mr. Tang, Ms. Mu, I'm really sorry. I originally presented you the villa number 9, but after I brought you back and was about to draft the purchase agreement, he told me that someone had booked the villa and the other party would come over to pay the purchase agreement in the afternoon. Actually, the customer who pays first would get the villa according to the policy of our company. I also talked about this with him, but he pressured me with his manager's identity. I'm really sorry. I've already thought of a way to work it out. Please wait for a while. Feng Chang never dreamed that Li Jing would actually point the spearhead at him, more so that she bluntly disclosed it to the customer. Anger surged up from his chest, as he glared at Li Jing and berated her, What nonsense are you spitting out? Who is using the manager's identity to pressure you, huh? Your work attitude surely is problematic, Li Jing. You're not worthy to be a staff at the sales center of Lauren Villa Complex. You're fired. Go back and pack your stuff and then leave. That's really impressive, Manager Feng. A cold voice came from the front door of the sales center as several men and women followed a middle-aged man inside. It was the middle-aged man who just spoke. The familiar voice made Fong Chong's complexion change. When he turned and saw Chen Bin, his heart suddenly thumped violently as he obsequiously smiled and said, "Boss, why didn't you inform me in advance? I would have sent someone to welcome you outside." With a grim expression, Chen Bin hummed coldly and said, "Could I still see your unruliness if I had given you prior notice? Training an outstanding salesperson has never been easy for the company, and yet you only need a few words to fire her? With you doing it in front of the customer is really so inspiring in and of itself, no?" A chill ran down Fong Chang's heart. As he was about to speak, he actually found that his boss didn't even want to listen to him at all, but continued to walk toward the young man sitting on the couch instead. "Are you Mr. Tang?" asked Chen Bin respectfully as he arrived in front of Tang Xiu. "Do you know me?" asked Tang Xiu back, surprised. "Hello, Mr. Tang, I'm Chen Bin, the chairman of the Hongtu Group. This is my business card." Chen Bin quickly said. "You and this young lady have been wronged by us, but thankfully our saleswoman has already informed me of everything. You can rest assured, however, that our company has distinct rules and policies that whoever pays the house is the one who gets it. Nevertheless, I still want to apologize to you and this lady for the problem caused by the staff of our company management that has brought a great inconvenience to the two of you here, and I must make up for it." "Oh? How do you want to make up for this matter, exactly?" asked Tang Xiu while letting out a faint smile as he got up to shake hands with Chen Bin, and the motioned Mu Weining to change the seat to give a place for Chen Bin. Chen Bin felt slightly flattered for being able to sit next to Tang Xiu and said, "Mr. Tang, regarding the problem caused by my company management staff, I will fire him at once and also inform the real estate developer circle. He will be blacklisted from all the major real estate developers in the future. This is an internal affair of your company. Tang Xiu either approve nor disapprove it. It has no relationship with us whatsoever." At the side, Fong Chang's face was tragic as he hastily cried out, "Boss, you can't fire me. I have the right to dismiss employees as the sales manager here. Also, I didn't offend these two clients either." Chen Bin suddenly turned his head and yelled angrily, "Shut up." Fong Chang's breath lagged and dared not speak again. The expression on Chen Bin's face was then replaced with a respectful expression as he said, "Mr. Tang, I decided to sell Villa number 9 to you for 1 yuan to make up for the wrongdoing my company has done to the two of you. You see." "What?" Tang Xiu was struck dumb, whereas Mu Weining's expression was one of disbelief. 1 yuan? A mere coin to buy a villa that was valued at over 60 million yuan? What kind of joke was this? At the side, Fong Chang stared at Chen Bin with disbelief all over his face as he couldn't believe what he heard. He could tell that the big boss was not ill, but why did he? Li Jing was also shocked, because it never crossed her mind even in her dreams that her reporting a complaint on the phone would unexpectedly turn the situation into this. "Is it because of Han Jintong?" asked Tang Xiu after thinking for a moment. "That's part of the reason, indeed," said Chen Bin quickly. "And the other part?" asked Tang Xiu again, frowning. "Mr. Tang, the person urged me to not mention him." Chen Bin hesitantly replied, "I'm sorry, but what you ask is hard for me to comply. There's a saying that no gains will be obtained without pains." Tang Xiu replied, "We're here to buy a villa, not to obtain something for free. If you don't tell us about the whole story, do you think we can accept your villa so easily?" After contemplating for a moment, Chen Bin finally spoke, albeit reluctantly, "All right. Since you must know, then I can only comply. It's actually Brother Jin Xinkue. I was having a discussion with him when I received a call from the sales staff, Li Jing." Tang Xiu suddenly understood. He looked at Mu Weining, nodded and said, I see. Since it's a kind intention from Jin Shinkue, let's settle this like that, then. Anyways, you don't have to stay here, though. You can resolve the affairs in your company while we will also tend to other things after we're done with the purchase of the villa. You two, please wait for 2 minutes. Chen Bin quickly got up and said, I'll immediately send someone to finish the formalities. When everyone had left, Mu Weining leaned on Tang Xiu, grabbed his arm, playfully smiled and said, I suddenly have a feeling, sweetheart. What feeling? Asked Tang Xiu while glancing at Mu Weining's hands pulling his arm. It's like I'm a mistress who's supported by a man, that is, said Mu Weining with a chuckle. Cough. Cough. Her answer made Tang Xiu cough twice and be at a loss whether to cry or laugh. Don't talk nonsense, will you? You're a rich young woman yourself, do you even need others to support you? The incident today is nothing but only an unforeseen mishap.
Yeah.
An unforeseen mishap, yet it saved me of more than 60 million yuan. Mu Weining laughed lightly. Anyhow, you do have quite the capabilities, sweetheart. Tang Xiu only wryly smiled in response and shook his head. He was actually pondering as to why Jin Shinkue urged Chen Bin to sell the villa priced at over 60 million yuan for 1 yuan only. What exactly did he invest to earn his friendship for? 10 minutes later, Li Jing brought the house purchase agreement to Tang Xiu and Mu Weining. Her attitude toward them at the moment had drastically changed. Either her respectful expression or prudent attention to them betrayed the intense nervousness inside her heart. Quickly after, the agreement had been signed. Mu Weining herself didn't have a single dime on her, so Tang Xiu eventually handed Li Jing a coin and smilingly said, anyways, don't look so cautious like that, we're not some big tigers. That's right, has the duty shift for staff changes in your company been done already?
Yeah.
It's been completed, and Feng Chang has been fired. Li Jing replied with a grateful expression. And I got promoted to the sales manager position. Mr. Tang, Ms. Mu, thank you very much. No need to be that polite. Tang Xiu waved his hand. If anything, you have a good professional ethics and your work quality is commendable. It's just that Feng Chang should not be a good person, else he wouldn't have made things difficult for a woman like you. Upon hearing this, Li Jing was so touched that she almost broke in tears. Though she had indeed made some achievements by struggling with her own abilities after coming to this metropolis, and was finally able to buy a small apartment through a mortgage, she lived alone, and there were no shoulders she could rest her head onto whenever she faced difficulties. The bitter experience she went through today had turned out to be the warmest thing she had ever gotten since coming to this city. Chapter 589, Suppression. Tang Xiu waited for Mu Weining to sign the house purchase agreement before they immediately left without even informing Chen Bin. Although Tang Xiu looked a bit indifferent toward Chen Bin on the surface, he was actually feeling thankful to him. Therefore, he called Jin Shinkue on the way back to invite him to a drink tomorrow night and told him to invite Chen Bin as well. You know, sweetheart, you've now become my idol. While steering the wheel, Mu Weining's eyes were full of dazzling lights as she smilingly spoke as Tang Xiu hung up the call. Ah, the first beauty of the capital and the first campus flower of Shanghai University unexpectedly see me as her idol? Tang Xiu couldn't help laughing and smilingly said. That's a great honor for me. If so, do I have the honor to invite my idol to have lunch together, then? Asked Mu Weining. Of course. Tang Xiu nodded. You saved quite a lot of money today. It's a must for you treat me to a meal. Anyhow, I've been asking around and heard that Shanghai has a recently opened restaurant, the Paradise Manor. Mu Weining smilingly said. I heard that the dishes over there are very unique and, most of all, it has a very good environment. Let's go have a meal there. Paradise Manor? Tang Xiu dazed for a second before he immediately laughed and said, good idea. That Paradise Manor is Lulu's, maybe she can give us a discount, too. Lulu? That Ouyang Lulu? Mu Weining had seen Ouyang Lulu before, thus had her brows slightly raised.
Yeah.
It's her, answered Tang Xiu. Pondering for a moment, Mu Weining suddenly shook her head and said, I'll to take you to lunch elsewhere, then. Huh? Tang Xiu was surprised. Why? You and Ouyang Lulu are too close, and I'm kinda afraid that she also won't accept our money like today, said Mu Weining with a pure expression. I just invited you to a meal and you agreed, hence the bill will be on me today. Can you at least let me spend some money? Mu Weining's faulty reasoning made Tang Xiu at a loss whether to laugh or cry. Mu Weining glanced at Tang Xiu again and no longer spoke. As a matter of fact, she was perfectly aware of the fact that Ouyang Lulu was Tang Xiu's close female friend and hailed from a prominent family in Jingmen Island. For her to move so eagerly to Shanghai and set up a hill resort restaurant here was perhaps just like her idea. Stay in Shanghai to get closer to Tang Xiu. In other words, she was highly likely her rival in love. Eventually, Mu Weining picked one of the very good restaurants in Shanghai and urged Tang Xiu to have a great feast, and then the duo had an extravagant lunch that cost 5 figures. The two had classes in the afternoon, however, so they returned to Shanghai University after finishing the lunch. After agreeing to find an interior design team later, they then parted ways to their respective classrooms. As always, leisure and carefree time passed fast. The time zipped by, and it had been nearly half a month since Tang Xiu returned from the capital. In this half a month, he occasionally went out to drink with Jin Xingkue, while some other times also accepting the invitations from Gu Changmin and Zhang Yuming. Even Ouyang Lulu also ran over to find him a few times to pester him. At some other times, he had classes to attend to in the campus and used the rest of his time whenever he had no class to impart his knowledge on Chinese medical expertise to Dai Xinyue in the Blue Star Villa complex, so much so that he taught her a lot of Chinese medical knowledge during this time. The morning sun was particularly bright and beautiful. After having breakfast, Tang Xiu received a call from Kawako Yamamoto and learned that she was in Shanghai. He asked her on the phone about her intention to come to Shanghai but was actually kept guessing by her. There will no class on from Saturday to Monday. Rather than staying at home for 2 days, I should better go out and have a stroll. While standing on the balcony, Chen Xiuwan's face appeared inside Tang Xiu's mind. The two of them hadn't met again in the past half a month except for having a conversation via phone. That's right. It seems Sis Xiaowan is working in the brisk trading group. Tang Xiu wanted to take her to work in the magnificent Tang Corp, but he hadn't had the opportunity to mention it to her since the two had only just met. I'll go see her, then. After making a decision, he went downstairs and headed straight to the garage. Although the Adra R was not to his liking, he was kind of prepared to pretend to be a swanky young master for the first time, nevertheless. While driving to the brisk trading group, Tang Xiu suddenly remembered Su Yanning. She was now working in Beijing and even though she had a good position and salary, after all, she was only a senior white-collar worker, he was worried there was some misgivings for living there alone. Sometimes he may be cruel, but the last time in Beijing made his relationship with her slightly easier. He also had thought to make her leave Beijing to work in the magnificent Tang Corporation. What was more, he wouldn't have known Chen Xiaowan if it wasn't for her. Therefore, after hesitating for a while, he put on a Bluetooth earphone and dialed Su Yanning's cell number. What's up? A cold voice belonging to Su Yanning came out of the phone. But Tang Xiu knew that she saved his cell number from her words. How were things recently? Are you getting treated badly at your work in the capital? Asked Tang Xiu. I'm all right, answered Su Yanning. My boss treats me well now thanks to your blessing. Striving alone in the capital is not a long-term solution, said Tang Xiu. You can work in the magnificent Tang Corp if you wish. Kong Xia has been prepping to expand the company recently and has decided to set up branches in the major provinces of the country. You can choose one of the province's branch offices as a general manager aside from the Beijing's and Shanghai's branches. Su Yanning fell into silence. She did feel that her life was a bit depressing even though she had a decent job in Beijing. She was living alone, after all. Life was passable and not bad in normal times, as she could go out once in a while, but it was quite hard whenever she fell ill as she wished to have a family member at her side. Especially last week, when she caught a bad cold and had to rest in bed, and no one was even there to bring and provide her some water. Back then, she felt that she would feel slightly warm even if the person who was there was Tang Xiu. After getting the silent treatment from Su Yening, Tang Xiu lightly continued, "There's no rush for you to answer me now. Besides, the establishment of the branch offices in the various provinces is not yet officially on schedule. It will probably be scheduled to be in about 10 days or so. Just consider it well and call me when you have made a decision." Su Yening didn't speak, but only let out a slight hum. "Anyways, I gotta tell you something. I just met Sis Xiaowan in Shanghai," said Tang Xiu. "Chan Xiaowan?" Su Yening stumped for words for a second before hurriedly asking.
Yeah.
"She's working in a foreign capital company in Shanghai," affirmed Tang Xiu. "Can you give me her cell number?" asked Su Yening quickly. "We separated after the high school graduation and only had occasional contacts during our time in the university, finally stopping contact due to various reasons later. I've always been wanting to look for her after I graduated, but she changed her cell number." "Okay, I'll send it to your phone number later." After concluding the call, Tang Xiu then sent her Chen Xiaowan's phone number. Brisk Trading Group. Chen Xiaowan was sitting on a chair in the office with an awful mood. She felt downhearted as she saw the irksome expression of the person in front of her who had suddenly become her new superior. As a deputy director of the Human Resources Department, she was greatly appreciated by her previous immediate superior and comfortably enjoyed her daily work normally. But around a week ago, her immediate supervisor resigned from the position of Human Resources Department Director due to an illness, and tried to recommend her to the top executives of the company as the new HRD director. Unfortunately, a new director suddenly came out of nowhere and snatched her opportunity from being promoted. She could accept it if it was only this, but the most depressing thing was that the new director was her archenemy during her time in university, Miao Xinran, who was also the vice president of the student union back then. "You're abusing your position to get even with me for a private grudge." Chen Xiaowan suppressed her anger as she pressed her hands on Miao Xinran's desk. "Oh please, don't be so narrow-minded, Chen Xiaowan," said Miao Xinran with an annoying tone. "You indeed had quite the ability and resources for being able to become the president of Students' Union back then, the cause of our grudges. But that's all in the past and I've already forgotten it. The current me is a Human Resources Department Director of the Brisk Trading Group, whereas you now are only a Deputy Director and my subordinate, so I do have the right to arrange your work." As she finished speaking, the scowl on her face subsided for the most part and was instead replaced by a glimpse of self-pride and smugness as she continued, "Ask yourself, who made you not to find yourself a good man to marry, huh? My husband is the Vice Chief Executive Officer of the Brisk Trading Group. He holds great power and influence and has a very deep background in Japan. And you? Didn't you just get dumped by that scumbag not long ago? You know, I can see that green hat being crowned over your head right now. You asshole." Chen Xiaowan suddenly got up and yelled. "What's wrong? You got pissed out of shame?" Miao Xinran mocked. "The West Branch office is in need of manpower now. The conditions there are quite difficult, I know, but the pay and welfare are more or less the same. So, you will go there, and you still must go even if you don't want to. Else you can be sure that I'll pack up your stuff and kick you out of here." After saying that, she didn't give a chance for Chen Xiaowan to speak, lifting her chin and stepping on her high heels leisurely as she walked outside. Chen Xiaowan gasped for breath. Her expression was one of unwillingness and unreconciled to the situation. Getting a promotion when you worked in the Japanese companies was very difficult, And there was only a slight chance for anyone being promoted unless you could display a stellar performance. She had worked hard and racked up good achievements before she got promoted to the vice director position in the human resources department, but now, she knew that she couldn't stay here. She didn't want to leave Shanghai. She would have considered going to the West if it was half a month ago. But now she was no longer alone in Shanghai, there was also her younger brother. Tang Xiu. Ring, ring, ring. Her mobile phone rang and dragged her back from her train of thought. Chen Xiaowan picked the call and looked at the number displayed on the screen. It was an unfamiliar number from Beijing. She wanted to reject the call but hesitated. She adjusted her emotions before picking it up and saying, "May I know who am I speaking with?" Xiaowan. Su Yanning's voice came out of the phone. Chen Xiaowan was startled as the voice sounded familiar, but she couldn't remember whose voice it was immediately. Just as she was about to inquire who the other party was, Su Yanning's face suddenly appeared in her mind. She suddenly felt a wave of emotions in her heart along with anticipation and excitement, as she probed, "Yanning?" Chapter 590, No one will compensate you if you die from excess anger. Su Yanning's whole being was excited upon hearing Chen Xiaowan's voice as she got up and quickly said, "I never thought I would be able to hear your voice again after so many years, Xiaowan. I've been wanting to contact you for years, but I wasn't able to get your number. I even asked a lot of our schoolmates, but they didn't know your mobile number either." Chen Xiaowan was also a bit excited at this time. The haziness inside her head diminished a little due to having re-established contact with Su Yanning again. She then replied, "Where are you now, Yanning?" "I'm in Beijing." "I heard from Tang Xiu that you are in Shanghai, is it true?" said Su Yanning. "How are you? Have you been great all this while?" Chen Xiaowan was taken aback before realizing that Su Yanning got her number from Tang Xiu. Although she was a bit curious about the situation between Tang Xiu and Su Yanning, asking about it now was out of place. After spending 10 minutes chatting with Su Yanning on the phone, the duo finally reluctantly hung up. Following that, she picked up all her personal belongings, wrote her resignation letter, and then directly put it on Miao Xinran's desk before turning around to leave without sparing her a glance. "Your boyfriend cheated on you, and now you lost a high-paying executive job too. What a sad life. Dramatic changes are interesting indeed. As your old classmate, I hope you won't come knocking on my door in the future as a beggar, though I'll still give you some coins, nevertheless." Miao Xinran curled her lips with tilted legs while folding her arms and shooting Chen Xiaowan's back a mocking look as she left. Chen Xiaowan's footsteps came to a halt as she finally turned around to look at Miao Xinran and said coldly, "There's a good saying for us all. 30 years west, and 30 years east. The pendulum swings both ways and every dog has its days. We'll wait and see later." After saying that, she lifted her head up, straightened up her chest and walked toward the outside. On this beautiful sunny day, the disconsolation and vexed feelings still made Chen Xiaowan depressed inside despite Su Yanning's call having dispelled a lot of the haze inside her heart. As she stepped out of the company's front entrance, standing outside while looking up at the bright sunshine, she finally took a deep sigh of relief secretly. Ring, ring, ring. Her mobile phone buzzed 3 times but was hung up directly. Chen Xiaowan slightly furrowed her brows. She hated people that made a call and then hung up, because 80% of them were misers who wanted to save their phone bill and wanted her to call back. "Hey, unemployed beautiful girl. Do you want this young master to support you?" A voice with hints of teasing came several meters away behind Chen Xiaowan. Chen Xiaowan had a change in expression. When she looked up and saw Tang Xiu, the chagrin, anger, and embarrassed feelings inside her heart eventually turned into grievance. She never expected that Tang Xiu would witness her losing her job despite having already had witnessed her breaking up with her boyfriend. Could it be that he would always appear whenever she fell into trouble? "How did you come here?" Looking at her face, Tang Xiu shrugged his shoulders and said, I was going to visit you in the brisk trading group and take you out today. Who would have thought that you came out from the inside just as I was going to dial your number? Did you really just get fired, Sis Xiaowan? Though somewhat feeling a bit depressed, Chen Xiaowan shook her head and answered, it can't said that I got fired. It's more like that I resigned on my own volition. How true it is that being plagued by bad luck is in truth that you are out of luck. How could this happen? Asked Tang Xiu, taken aback. Let's forget about this, shall we? Chen Xiaowan shook her head. Anyhow, I don't need to ask for a leave today in any case. What plans do you have in mind? Well, I'll be accompanying you to relax, said Tang Xiu directly. All right. Good. As she walked to a trash can outside the door, Chen Xiaowan threw all the stuff inside the box into it. Following that, she grabbed Tang Xiu's arm and headed toward the road. What a beautiful sports car. The moment they arrived before the Adra R sports car, Chen Xiaowan sighed and praised in appreciation. Tang Xiu picked out the car keys and pressed the button as the four-corner lights of the Adra R sports car flashed. Then, he turned to look at the stunned Chen Xiaowan as he walked to the front of the passenger seat, opened its door and smilingly said, let me give you a ride since you are in a bad mood, Sis Xiaowan. This sports car is yours? Asked Chen Xiaowan.
Yeah,
replied Tang Xiu with a nod. This is mine, your younger brother's. There's no chance this car is a cheap one, right, Tang Xiu? Chen Xiaowan gulped down and asked in a low voice. It's not really that expensive, though. Just around 10 million. Answered Tang Xiu while shaking his head. What? Chen Xiaowan exclaimed with disbelief filling her eyes. Despite knowing that Tang Xiu was rich, yet it was out of her imagination that he could be extravagant enough to buy a luxury car worth over 10 million yuan. Suddenly, Tang Xiu's expression moved and asked, do you have a WeChat account, Sis Xiaowan? The sudden change of topic made Chen Xiaowan bewildered as she answered instinctively. Tang Xiu grabbed Chen Xiaowan's mobile and opened the WeChat app. He instructed her to make some poses in front of the Adra R sports car, took a few photos of her and then sent those pictures to her Moments friends circle while adding some comments below. Got fired by a squid in the company and feeling quite vexed and shitty right now. Hence I ask my brother to come to fetch me and go for a ride to relax. Also, I'm gonna have a big party tonight. After feeling satisfied with sending the photos to her friends circle, Tang Xiu returned the mobile to Chen Xiaowan, and then forced her to enter the front passenger seat, closed the door, and drove the car away with her. Inside the director's office of the Brisk Trading Group's Human Resources Department, Miao Xinran made coffee for herself in a brisk and happy mood. She then tilted her legs and fiddled with her mobile phone. She was very happy today, and even felt a refreshing feeling and emotion flowing through her body. Someone she always hated and a thorn in her flesh had finally been removed from the company. It made her feel that the air was full of pleasant fragrance. Chen Xiaowan, you never thought that you'd get your just desserts, did you? Humph, you're still worlds apart if you think you can contend against me. And now, you should be squatting in some corner of the company crying and weeping, right? This thought made Miao Xinran laugh. Suddenly, her eyes lit up, for she knew that Chen Xiaowan often tweeted her friends' circle in the WeChat moments. She quickly opened WeChat as she had the urge to see her in a pitiful and tragic appearance there. What? The smile on Miao Xinran's face froze and disbelief was plastered on her face. Her eyes stared at the content of the latest tweet and messages in the group, causing her chin to almost fall. That car, isn't it the Adra R sports car? It must be. The World Limited Edition Adra R supercar was not that well known, yet its price was ridiculously sky-high. She loved sports cars and read about it on the World Supercars magazines countless times, hence she remembered the shape and appearance of the Adra R. Suddenly, as though realizing something, Miao Xinran strode toward the window and quickly looked outside of the building. After quickly glancing around, she caught sight of the luxurious Adra sports car driving fast on the road. It was like the scene of a prince who came rushing into a group of beggars, looking bright and dazzling. How could this be? She felt her face burning. Chen Xiaowan's moments was like a fierce invisible slap to her face, making her scorched inside. After she came back from Japan and obtained a position in the company, she secretly investigated the circumstances surrounding Chen Xiaowan. There had been no information from that investigation results pertaining to any rich younger brother whatsoever, right? Not any on the luxury Adra supercar either. Huff. Narrow-minded as she was, the intense jealousy made Miao Xinran take a few deep breaths and clench her fists tightly. Her mind was racing unceasingly, trying to find an opportunity to get even with Chen Xiaowan, and how to make her life become more miserable. All day long, Tang Xiu brought Chen Xiaowan for a ride, eating and drinking, and visiting a lot of entertainment venues and places with delicious culinary in Shanghai until their bellies almost burst out, ending up with a lot of shopping bags in their hands. In the beginning, Chen Xiaowan was not used to frequently upload her activities to the moments. But after Tang Xiu fanned the flames, she went ahead regardless and directly exploded it out without many thoughts anymore. Every time she arrived at a view spot, she tasted several kinds of food and took pictures whenever she visited a store. She eventually uploaded hundreds of photos in her Moments account in just a day. Miao Xinran, who had been following her Moments, was simply blown up by anger. Never once had she imagined that Chen Xiaowan, who had just been dumped by her boyfriend and lost her job, would be enjoying herself by strolling around, feasting, and shopping. Dusk finally came and Tang Xiu stopped his car outside a cafe. He then led Chen Xiaowan into the cafe and ordered 2 cups of coffee. After sitting on the opposite side of Chen Xiaowan, he smilingly said, "Well, we just tasted a lot of types of food today, and you are probably already full to have a dinner now, right? Anyhow, take your coffee and wait until I'm done with my work before sending you back home." Chen Xiaowan's gloomy mood had long since disappeared. Today she was so happy strolling around that she nodded in satisfaction while sitting on her chair. However, she couldn't help but ask out of curiosity upon hearing this, "What exactly are you going to do, brother?" "I'm waiting for someone." "Waiting to receive a gift, to be precise," said Tang Xiu smilingly. "Waiting for a gift?" asked Chen Xiaowan with a confused expression. "How come? Today is not the New Year's or your birthday. How come someone suddenly has a thought of giving you a gift?" "That person is my subordinate who has found something interesting, probably," answered Tang Xiu with a smile. Chen Xiaowan understood immediately. She then let out a smile and nodded, "Anyhow, thanks for everything today, brother. Else I would probably have died in depression. You're a big sis of mine, so there's no need for small talk between us." Tang Xiu said, "That's right, what do you have in mind for the future? Do you want to work for my company, by chance? You can rest assured that you'll have a very good position and salary, and it will definitely be higher than your previous job position by at least a few times. What do you think?" "Hold on, let's put off talking about this until later, okay?" Chen Xiaowan hesitated. "I just lost my job today, and it kind of left a big hole in my heart. Give me some time to rest and think about it well. You don't know, but working in Japanese enterprises is just too hard. You have a long day and yet you must always work diligently and painstakingly all the time for fear that others will overtake you. Then take a break for a while." Tang Xiu nodded. "Shortly put, play if you want to play, and buy whatever you want to buy. As a big sis you used to take care of me, your little brother back then, but it's now the turn of your younger brother to take care of you. Don't hesitate to directly call me if you are ever short on money. I can't guarantee exactly how much, but I can give you millions or billions as pocket money." Cough. Cough. Chen Xiaowan almost choked.